Hunt Down Rose by Bear. You can read this sci-fi mystery action novel on Dreame.
Presented by Sophia's Haven. Please click the bell button to subscribe.
In a world where violence and politics coexist, crimes have run rampant due to the powers that have grasped the Pearl of the Orient. Thomas, an NBI forensic investigator, embarks on a journey to unravel the secrets that lie within his country's past, while seeking salvation and sanity amidst the impending dangers that await him. Introduction. Fates Crossed. Year 2014. The perfect time to establish power and authority over the heathens. The forces of the people are hovering through the streets as the police force do their best to hold their ground against the angst and powers of the deviants throwing a riot at the very square where the center of strength lies, the NBI headquarters itself. Having their positions in front, it appears that the people want to appeal regarding the strictness and the implication of the government force to increase the curfew and the rules regarding the freedom of most people in the crisis that we are experiencing today. A lot has drastically changed in the political forces, and all of it sees to affect every little nook of matter in this country. Staring outside the windows, they have every reason to do such a thing, although I cannot consider their efforts as a form of revolt. The intensity in which they emphasize their actions are shallow rather than exuberant. Based on my personal experience with rallies as a riot officer before, not everyone who participate knows what they should know. Puppets for a cause or ignorant puppets. Whether they decide which one to pick, they are still the same, doing all of these for the sake of the higher-ups' amusement. Just like how the saying goes, even if you throw a pebble in the water it will only produce such a small ripple, not unless you drop a large rock to change the current in which the water flows. I am simply thinking of ways to give them a piece of assuage to conform to their deeds, but I am in no position to do charity and act like a god. But the human mind definitely intrigues me greatly. It is just one of the few insufficiencies that man seeks to fill. Even though the container of philosophy itself has holes, it literally depends on which hole you will choose to cover up. As time flies by you will realize that you cannot fill it all, but only ensure that nothing substantial gets out of you willingly and forcibly. Taking a sip from my morning coffee, I still have plenty of time for my meeting later with the department head. Probably another case that they want me to chew with a few setbacks on my tail to consider. As of now, the entire country is facing a political and economic crisis due to a murder that has happened a few weeks prior the arrival of the ASEAN, or Association of Southeast Asian Nations leaders. It just so happens that one of their trump cards died a very controversial and mysterious death that up to now we are still rendered helpless due to the rules that inhibits us from sinking our claws deep into the case. You can say that our hands are tied over our backs. We can essentially perform what is necessary, but it will surely leave some consequences on our department or even at a national level if we aren't careful. For now, based on the news and the mainstream papers that I acquired, the victim was Armando Yun, one of the prominent figures in the Philippine business sector. He is known to be dominant over all the major establishments of weapons manufacturing roundabout the islands. Not much has been stated regarding his assets and liabilities, but it is interesting that even the government doesn't want to disclose any of the information yet, even to our department. It wasn't much of a discussion among the officials until word came to us pointing the depth and severity of the case at hand. It became a top priority upon the discovery of new evidences 2 days after the discovery of the corpse. Given the time of 3 weeks, a bloody trial has already established by the court a day after the discovery of the body. On the other hand, I have my own investigation regarding the whereabouts of this case, but it is best to have my profile low until it is necessary to move without restrictions. It was also apparent to me that I will have someone to assist me on some elementary tasks like a shit ton of paperwork. It was apparent to me that Galvez sent a certain individual to aid me that is somewhat close to one of the officials or directors in the forensic department. It makes it quite difficult to deny the offer, even though I am not that considerable with the people handpicked to help me. I have a certain level of competence considerable of such acts, and I do not want to spoil my thoughts on thinking who this person is. Whether I enjoy this case or live in despair all throughout the year, we cannot wait to perform our operation firsthand. The best art form that we can use to carve our names is to get the job done. Chapter 1 Paradox. My name is Thomas James Alighieri Garcia. I am an NBI forensic artist, investigation specialist, 24 years of age, and I am still stuck in this type of atmosphere inside. Foolishly looking at the clock stuck to the wall in an unbalanced position inside Mr. Galvez's office, I am bored to death. He seems to be stating something about a case. Nevertheless, all of these are just the same thoughts out of the past 9 years that I've been here, and right now I'm a sitting duck with this long speech of his. I am not a listener when it comes to peculiar details nor the impeccable interest of others. My mind rejects such, and at this very moment of time I enjoy being passive in front of Galvez.
"Are you listening, Thomas?"
he asked. His tone seems to be in a higher pitch than usual. To be honest with you, no. What you're saying is pretty much just the same thing written on your desk, so I might as well have that. I replied to him, fixing my sleeves. The ambiance inside is quite odd. I do not even think he has opened this to anyone except me. It's as if he's giving me the upper hand to handle everything.
"If that is what you like then, but you should still give consideration to my details."
As if I care about that. Whenever you let me have something in advance, it means that you have something else in mind. For a moment he was about to burst into laughter. But it's the way he speaks in particular that annoys me. Many years I've tried to keep my composure without being explosive with his approach. He is the heart and accolade of every gleeful officer in this department, and I have to say, he can be the mascot if we need to promote ourselves to the general eyes of the public. Then he threw a folder in front of his desk. "This one is really thick. What is this?" I asked, with the ideas of another cleanup at hand. He may have overestimated my capabilities far too well.
"Since you weren't listening and instead you prefer looking at that old grandfather clock, I might as well give all of the details of this matter for you to internally assess it by yourself."
He stood up and opened something, probably one of his cabinets.
"The most interesting part about this is you'll be working with Melissa Cruz. She's a journalist and I'm sure you will enjoy her company."
I slammed my hand on his desk as I stood up. No, I don't need a partner in this case. As long as I have the equipment I can do the task by my own. Plus, I heard she is just a mere magazine writer without any experience in the field. You wanna send her in a suicide mission? You got to be kidding me, man. I was already instructed on this one a few hours ago right after I finished my coffee. I thought it was just a joke, but it appears to be more constituent in nature. A guinea pig, if not a token of their approval on the departments aside from the quarterly cross-examination by each office to assess if the employees are working well together. This Melissa Cruz, based on her resume and physical examination, tells me that she needs to be babysit than being a loose cannon in the field. I'm thinking of ways to utilize her skills, but up to what extent exactly?
I know, lad, but it is time for you to understand that your conditions don't revolve around this mad world, and you oughta know that.
So what? We're going play let's pretend this partnership is okay until the due date of your retirement. Based on her physique, she can't even climb a wall. And that's the type of partner you'll be giving me. Are you serious about this? I added. I kept on using redundant questions just to pull him out of his comfort zone. Even though Galvez is gullible, he has a lot of things inside his sleeve, especially when it comes to giving uncanny decisions.
Not quite, Thomas. You'll be partnered with her not because it was requested by me, but it is because of her dad. He formally asked if I could help her develop her skills with the help of the agency.
He said, leaning back on his chair. And like a puppy you followed his orders. How cute. I will not entirely consider her help throughout the case, I said to him as I sat down opening the folder.
Beats me,
he replied with a shrug. As I look up on his face, I can see the satisfaction of his works within those wrinkled eyes of his. I just continued scrolling down the files until I noticed something interesting about this case. It's Armando Yun again, huh? I thought we were dealing with some low-grade politician, but I guess we still can't move on with this one. I said to myself, skimming the data just to confirm what I know. Armando Yun is one of the co-founders of the leading military arms developer in the entirety of the Southeast Asian market. So far, his company manipulates almost 30% of the existing trades to and fro the international communities. Whether or not most of them are illegal, the agency cannot proceed at their pace due to boundaries. It is no longer any wonder that an individual would give a ghastly grin just to have him down. 2 weeks ago, the case pertaining to his death was declared closed due to the so-called decisive evidence that was established. During the dictatorial reign, the country made various military technologies and drugs that were immediately brought down due to its harshness and inhumane nature. For him to survive the onslaught was already a form of miracle on its own, but still, he was only able to delay the inevitable, his very own death. That information hasn't been released to the public, although there are a lot of similar products that mimic the effect of the drugs made before. This made me want to check the history of everything to see if there's a connection between the past and this one.
Yes, it was. However, it reopened due to some new evidence that existed within the grasp of our teeth. Based on what you've heard and seen on the news, it was Mr. Yun's mistress Ana de la Cruz who was the one in charge of the house during that time. Quite odd that the court procedures only lasted for a day due to lack of decisive evidence, but here we are, with this so-called evidence.
According to the prosecution, they claim that both parties had some kind of dilemma with their rights. However, it isn't certain if that was purely out of money or something else. Reading the next page, something caught my eye. It's a list of some stocks and combined assets, which also includes Anna's numbers registered under Yun. So this is the amount of Mr. Yun's stocks overall, is that correct?
Indeed, no wonder his death means a great loss in the economy after he took his belongings and sealed them out. Only the inheritor would gain access to all of those in due time, according to some of his personal lawyers that we've interviewed. This is the reason why I only showed this information to you, because of the condition his lawyers stated.
You mean lawyers existing under his belt? Quite understandable that they have countermeasures to prevent leakage.
Yes, that's true.
Galvez leaned back on his chair and continued.
His family once owned a military corporation selling weapons and security for a decade. Under the government's rule and order, they were able to export these weapons to different neighboring countries here in the southeast. Now moving on to our case, we found something interesting.
Pulling the laptop out of a bag under his desk, he opened it and clicked some folders, particularly about videos.
We checked the CCTV footage on a hidden camera that was placed on a book inside Yun's master's bedroom. This shows the scene of the two fighting about some matters. Apparently we found out two interesting facts.
He started clicking something in his laptop and showed screenshots of enhanced images from the video and the crime scene. The images were placed on separate tabs, giving me a quick comparison between the two.
Now I want you to tell me what you can see.
He handed it to me. Watching the video, which lengths at precisely 3 minutes, I could see the mistress resisting Mr. Yun's grasp. Stuff were flying everywhere as she tried to escape the room. She did hit him with his walking stick in the head while hearing a lot of harsh words coming from Mr. Yun. Then I noticed something about the setting of the scene, the clock hanging on the wall and the calendar. It is said Mr. Yun has an odd behavior wherein he encircles his calendar on whatever date it is as a way of remembering them. Based on the timeline this video was taken, it was dated August 13, 2014. A day before the incident happened, this recording was made unconsciously along with the remaining exploits of Yun and his mistress that was on the laptop. With the misleading facts and timetable of the murder, it is stated in the video that the calendar has the numbers 1 to 13 encircled using a marker. But on the murder scene, the calendar wasn't encircled at all. Plus, the patterns of circles seem to be different from the video of their argument even on the testimonies given by his maids. According to some sources, the circle Mr. Yun usually applies has a certain measurement of some sort. These circles round the number in an almost perfect enclosure using a large coin. From the first report of the NBI's examination, the forensic team was able to find a coin inside one of his cabinets with black ink marked on the sides. It must be the coin that he has been using along with the broad-tipped whiteboard pen on his desk. On top of that, there's a splash of blood behind the calendar where the trajectory of the blade was supposed to be pointed at. Irresistible enough not to notice, the blood marks stop in the middle of the calendar and continues onward to the other side. This means that the calendar was changed after the murder. Sadly, the rest of the videos were corrupted or bugged. The laptop must have been on for quite some time when it took a video of Yun and his mistress fight inside the room. Who knows if changes were made these past few days, considering that this is just some new evidence that arrived in our office. The images proved the irregularities on the report that was made. There's definitely something fishy going on. There are no other items present that can support this theory, nor the idea that someone did change this stuff. However, for the court it would be a vital piece of evidence if used properly, and in a different angle it could also bring a sure guilty verdict. Even though the written cause of death was a blown-up pacemaker, it doesn't make any sense on the autopsy's assessment. According to the lab results, the slash was strong enough to incapacitate the victim. Why blow his pacemaker up? I still insist on the fact that the killer is cautious enough not to leave his target alive no matter what reason and to use Ms. Anna as a scapegoat. This isn't something that was planned on a whim. Everything is clear to me now, I said to him, handling the laptop over. The calendar pretty much sums up the day the murder happened. Whoever did this could have done his best to clear up the scene, or he did leave it like that on purpose. I can't believe the calendar could be this amusing. If only you gave this case to me immediately, we would have saved some face in front of the media.
What do you think of it?
Mr. Galvez asked me, utterly disrupting my silence. I carefully looked at the crime scene photo and the recording on any changes. Comparing them, there were a few things added, but I can't necessarily say what it is yet. It seems like he had a few minutes to spare, judging on the wounds and the number of people present during that time. I don't think he would have made a mistake leaving those holes everywhere in the room. Or worse, it might be in the other places we haven't checked in the mansion.
So you're saying that our culprit was busy doing something? Perhaps that is what you are getting at, correct?
Probably. However, I need to investigate the place further if you want to squeeze more details out of this. It's hard to give assumptions on such a fragile matter. It is trivial indeed that the murderer left such obvious remarks on the crime scene. He started tugging his small beard as if he's a pirate.
In any case, it would be wise to scan the whole area under my watch.
Do you have the search warrant ready? I asked.
Indeed. Besides, if we hit this case from rock bottom back to the top, we might increase our department's credibility.
It seems like you already have a goal to achieve on this one.
Yes.
He replied, closing the laptop and placing it back inside his bag.
Keep in mind that the Interpol is also watching this case from above.
I can agree to that, since we are dealing with a big fish after all.
So I've heard. They can't take their eyes on something suspicious enough within our hands. That's why I require you to gather new information on Mr. Armando Yun.
And you expect me to do what? I replied to him, dig up his grave for further analysis.
Not precisely, but what I want you to do is take necessary measures to know who the killer is. Mr. Yun's name is at stake along with his shares and investment. We also have to make sure nothing happens to his family on behalf of his will.
Will? Did he write something before his death?
Actually, that's the problem. His son Amadio would soon inherit the shares in the next 4 days, according to his attorney.
Have they received death threats recently?
Yes, and that is what bothers the authorities and his mistress.
Yeah, sure. But what's really interesting here is, why didn't you and your team immediately acquire this type of information?
It's because the video given to us by the security personnel was encoded. Meaning we had to access the file on a different perspective of network. The legal team of Yun also made things quite difficult for us, since they were conscious that there might be business-related stuff inside the laptop. Unfortunately, the only existing network on the house during that time was Mr. Yun's. Just imagine what kind of mess the legal department had to deal with.
I can already visualize chaos inside the briefing room during that time.
And
I cut him off before he could speak another word. That is enough. Standing up, grabbing some folders related to the case on his desk. I tried my best to fix my composure due to this sudden surge of weakness upon hearing the news of having a partner. I'll take this case as long as this Melissa will be out of my tail when I'm working. Let's not make it too difficult on both sides, shall we? I said to him, leaving the room with a clear view of the crime scene inside my head. Passing through the information center, I can hear a lot of women giggling of some sort as I walk past them to get the keys to the old elevator. The NBI building to be described looks like an ordinary office, only with big guns. Every day is a busy day, cases here and there to soothe my mind from being idle. Reaching the elevator, which is on the end of the hallway, I immediately got down and saw the same dark atmosphere ever since the day I started working here. Purgatory, as others might call it due to the history this place is known to, is the main attraction of the HQ. During the 1800s, Spaniards used this as an underground burial chamber and study area for the dead. Here lies a long hallway, with 21 rooms on each side containing mummies and dead corpses very well preserved. When the Historical Commission took a visit inside this place, they were mesmerized with the number of corpses stored. Up to now I still don't have any idea about their identity, but throughout the years I've used these bodies for my research. A few relics such as pots and glasswares have been donated to the National Museum. I digress, so much antiques in my surroundings, since I have plenty of those displayed on a lot of rooms here. The cold air could be felt with the dark fog coming from each room, and the rusty antiques that are hanging on the walls makes it even more amusing. As I went onward, it's as if I can hear those condemned souls screaming out of the wooden doors. Shadows creeping on the hallway, grasping for light, with the feeling of being watched. Reaching the middle part of the hallway, I turned the switch on and the lights slowly started to take its place. Lighting up the rooms, the haunting finally stopped, leaving a nice and peaceful path for me. Entering the crypt, I faced the mirror located on both sides of the room. There I saw him, sitting on my dental chair in the middle of the crypt, drinking tea. For years I've been fed up with my own hallucinations. Based on what my psychologist presumes, I have an identity disorder, but I don't think it is the proper wording for such, since it lacks a lot of things based on experience. To describe how it works, imagine another insignificant you dwelling inside your head, even though in the first place he should not exist. What he wants or what he means, it is completely blank for me. He discusses irrelevant epithets unless it is important on my part, or if he needs something done using my own body as his vessel. There is much to unravel in the history of this country. The establishment of the government, uproar due to the militarization, and conspiracies that I myself have been a part of. This man right here that looks exactly like me, is one of those dark pasts. The only thing that I know is that from the spotlight of the world, there might be a substantial number of my kind who experiences the same demented and detrimental state of being. From my years of studying forensics and blacksmithing, I can only use brief homemade remedies to ease my visions often. It's working so far, and I can still manage to handle the pressure amidst the erratic mood that he portrays whenever I see him in mirrors. Grim Noir, a name that he gave to himself that seems to have quite a meaning but never explains anything about it. I did my best to remove him out of my head, but just like most of the stitches that I have on my body, this entity is built to last. Before I force myself to smash the mirror, I grabbed my phone and started calling a colleague of mine that specializes in systems and information. Unlike any other IT nerds, he has a certain taste in military weaponry in which gives me the upper hand whenever I need to do some hunting. Given the fact that he has aced his major exams, he didn't finish his studies and started working on a military corps as a maintenance man before getting kicked out because of his little prank on the building's main server. He placed a bug on the system jamming the connection just for him to acquire internet services on his room. Apparently he has a brain for hire and he has the freedom to piss anyone off their comfort zone. I just hope he isn't on a tight schedule to do some stuff since he has to run his business and expertise in different sectors. After 45 seconds of waiting, a somehow foggy voice could be heard.
Yeah, who is this?
At a second thought I wondered who this person is. It's me, Thomas. By the way, is this the right number? I said to him, asking myself if I dialed the right number. Don't tell me you are drunk at this very moment. I added, checking my list of contacts on my shelf.
It's me, Carlos, and yeah, I'm fucked up from last night.
Do you have some spare time? I asked.
Are you asking me on a date, pretty boy?
Do you want me to shoot you when we meet? For a moment I felt my blood boil. He laughed.
That's the Thomas that I know.
From the other line I can hear him fall off the floor.
I'm okay, I'm okay.
He replied on the phone, probably getting his body off from somewhere.
Well, what is it that you want?
Just a few profiles checked and previous occupations. I said to him, opening some of my notes with some of the case files clipped on the side. Something is definitely missing from the police report submitted to me a while ago.
Seems like you got yourself up on another case, huh?
Yes. And do you know whose case it is? I said to him, giving him the chance to think deeply and get his head on the run.
Cut me some slack, will you? I still have this hangover from last night.
So is that some sort of celebration? Or another heartbreak? A sudden moment of silence filled the room as I waited for his response. I must have crossed his comfort zone, although this doesn't happen often in our conversations.
I don't want you to laugh at what I'm about to say, alright?
He spoke in such a low volume. Sure, as if there's something funny about your situation right now. Then he paused once again, undoubtedly gaining his momentum to speak up this matter.
My pet rabbit died yesterday.
Just when I was about to sympathize with him, I wasn't able to hold myself and I started laughing out loud that it echoed all over the room. Then I heard him shouting over the phone.
Hey, I told you not to laugh, you moron.
I kept on laughing. What can I do? It's funny, funny indeed. For some reasons the only thing I pity on him right now is his habit of making a big dilemma over small things on his personal life. His situation is always prone to humor in many ways that I can conceive.
Man, this is the reason why I hate saying these things to you.
Come on. I called you for your expertise, obviously not to be your psychiatrist on your personal thoughts and problems.
Yeah, damn it. Anyways, who's the unlucky bastard worthy of your irritation?
I can hear him sitting on his chair pressing a few buttons, probably his personal computer. The usual gesture of a lazy programmer depressed on something irrational is what's coming inside of my head as I consider the response he'd be giving me once he finds out who the person is. It's Mr. Armando Yoon, I said to him as he briefly paused for a moment.
What? Since when did you get yourself into a big fish?
The case was just given to me this morning. Apparently I'm still lacking a lot of information and individual backgrounds.
Wait there bro. I'll be doing a quick run-through on his businesses. A long list of names and ventures occurred on my screen. As I can see, they are names with preceding transaction dates during the end of the dictatorial rule.
After a few minutes something seems to be happening on his desk.
Just don't get caught up on what you're doing. I've a bad feeling on this guy's associates.
I started to hear a lot of typing coming on the other side of the line. It's as if I'm hearing the sound of a machine gun with its bullets ready and stocked up for action. Beeping sounds and electronic buzzes started to occur with some confirmation voices. He must be gathering the information through illegal sources across the network. After 4 minutes of non-stop typing and whatsoever is going on there.
There you have it.
He shouted at the phone. What do you mean you have it?
Let me send the file over on your email. It should be there immediately.
I hurriedly opened my laptop and logged on to the internet. As soon as I checked my mail I noticed the file he was itching to show me. Opening it, a bunch of names and corresponding affiliations popped up along with their status. Most of the individuals here are dead based on the events that took place during the revolution. According to the intel report stored inside the FBI's protected archives, the military along with the science department opened a business venture here in the Philippines 30 years ago. Using the genes of various athletes, world-renowned scientists, individuals and Nobel Prize winners, they were able to splice it and create an artificial serum that once cultivated with the right genome can enhance the person's capacity in relation to the genes inherited from the source. Even though the cause of the government's downfall isn't related to the development of the said drug, it was still a serious case that was addressed by the officials and revolutionaries. As much as possible, they prevented the leakage of the project even across the countries to ensure that no sort of recreation would take place. Only a handful of individuals have access to this information, including me. The list that was given to me shows a second-hand relationship between the benefactors of the project, politicians, influential personalities, directors and those who were killed during the overthrow of the government. Only several individuals are still alive and if it would be updated, excluding Yun. What's written here are the transactions and activities that Yun has made during the past few decades, from business personal visits, import of materials from overseas suppliers, and currency exchanges. We have it here. We also have a transcript of bank deposits, acquired from using my Access ID in Yun's bank database. All of these are well written from 1982 up to the present dates. It appears that Carlos has been digging up some stench out of the man himself for quite a while now. Indeed, Armando Yun has been the talk of the town ever since the declaration of his case as a murder incident. End of Chapter 1. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the preview audio of this story, please read it on Dreame. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click the subscribe button to follow. Don't forget to watch our videos and more audiobook preview from recommended stories on Dreame. Until next time.